back and tell you about that. But we are here and we are participating in sessions, and it's really interesting, I think, because it shows how we work as an organization. As Patrice said, she's new, and it does not matter with our nonprofit, whether you are the CEO, myself, or a long-term volunteer like Deb, or brand new. If you want to be part of utilizing your voice to impact education, advocacy, and research, we have a seat for you at the table. So we're welcoming Patrice with big open arms, and we thank her for joining us. So what we're going to do here is we have a core team of people at our organization who are attending all of the sessions to give a summary and overview, find out what we think might be of most interest to our community, and of course, what is relevant to our organization. And we will watch about 5 or 6 of these every week, and then we're going to give you a debrief on those. And that's what this is for right here and right now. We're going to give you a debrief on the first week of us reviewing these, and we're going to start, I think, at the beginning. Which was the opening plenary session. And really what that is in the beginning of these scientific meetings, they have an opening welcome. So it served as the welcome, and Ian McGinnis, the president of EULAR, was the host, and had several other people that I'll let my colleagues here talk a little bit about. But just to let everyone know, EULAR has 3 specific pillars, and it falls under the rheumatologists, the clinicians, research, so it has a very clinical component. Then they have healthcare providers, so HCP as they call them. But what's unique about EULAR is, compared to the American College of Rheumatology, for now, anyway, is that EULAR also has a leg for patients, and it is led by patient organizations that are called PARA. And if you can see, if you're watching this, I have simulated what it was like to be at EULAR last year with the photo behind me, and that is people with arthritis and rheumatism in Europe. So that is who PARA is, and they have a very large presence at the EULAR scientific meeting. So I wanted to preface that, but I'm going to turn it over here to Deb to get us rolling on our update here.
Absolutely. The things that I, pulled out of it was, there was Professor John Isaacs. He is our EULAR scientific chair, and he actually did a preview. What are the don't miss sessions that were there? So they had ones for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and the one on Wednesday as well. There's a big COVID presence, which again, we understand why. I won't go through what they are, but actually they're the ones that we're circling around with.
Yes, a couple of them are, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. And one of the main takeaways from this session was there's something brand new that's actually happening. It's called the EULAR Virtual Research Center. They have been using the acronym of VRC for that. And it is to bring the power of the European research people together. And it's to bring innovation, creativity, application of amazing technologies. And Dieter did a quick, and we'll explain who Dieter is in a bit. Dieter kind of went through and brought about what is super important. He talked about the PRP's network, the patient research partners. He said that is huge. The international collaboration of PRPs, patient research partners, involved from around the world. So that means us. And, they talked about different trainings that's available as well. And the overall objective is to, advance the quality of research and collaborate around the world. So that's a really quick brief on that. And I think, Patrice, you were going to go into a little bit about what the president of EULAR said, right?
Yes, he made some good points. He said that they want to put the patient more at the center of all this. And they also want more feedback from the patients, which is what our organization is about.
Mhm.
And they consider that very, very important. So
And
I really like that.
yeah, and that's such a great tie-in because, so Deb had mentioned Dieter, and that's Dieter Wick. He is the vice president of EULAR PARE. And Deb and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him in person at EULAR 2019. We were one of the organizations that attended the meeting for the PARE participants, which are, again, the nonprofit organizations that are headquartered in Europe. However, in 2017, our organization, in addition to Creaky Joints, holla, so and then, we were two of the organizations that were invited outside of being European based to participate. So we went to Brussels and went to Parliament and were able to travel around with PARE. So we still feel like we are part of them, and that's why we went to the meeting. But at the end, Dieter did pull Deb and I over off to the side, and which we are going to really tie right back into our update here. He had said to us at the time, what's wrong with the ACR, because they do not include patients very much, and we agreed. He suggested that our organization step up and work to be the pivotal the bridge, I guess,
Yeah.
between the two, that he would help. And he suggested also working with Humanet, which is their young rheumatology group, because bringing the young rheumatologist in. So that is on our radar. And I'm going to circle back here to the Virtual Research Center, because the thing I loved so much about what he said and what the group was saying in general was that yes, this is a European initiative, but it was Dieter who specifically drilled in the fact that it needs to be international. He's got a really broad global scope, which we absolutely just think is wonderful. And they all said that the only way to achieve progress is to bring all parties to the table to solve problems. And I almost fell off my chair, because that's our mission. With ours is to have patients as equals with other stakeholders. That's our mission, but that's exactly what they said. And Dieter is a person living with these diseases. So we will be circling back with them and getting ourselves involved more in the Virtual Research Center. And stay tuned as we continue to follow up with our updates of EULAR on that, because I know that we're going to be circling back. So next up is the COVID. We're going to touch a little bit on COVID. There were two that we attended. There are more, but we started with what we thought made a lot of sense. EULAR, the scientific, the clinical healthcare practitioners, their recommendations for COVID. And then Deb's going to cover a little bit about the PARE version, which would be the patient side. We thought that was a good parallel. The highlights from the scientific portion, it's interesting. A lot of people had said to us, why aren't you posting the ACR recommendations? And the reason why is because the ACR, American College of Rheumatology, and EULAR both published them, and they were slightly different. So we were waiting to go to this session
And find out.
Literally covered what are the differences between ACR and EULAR recommendations. So we've got those outlined. Overall, the main thing we all have to remember is that we are in a time where there is no robust evidence there to draw any strong conclusions on the effects of COVID in patients with rheumatic diseases, RMDs. And that's what they wanted to clarify here. They were under the gun to put some recommendations out there. They did their very best with little information. We just don't know enough. And the ACR put them out first, which was in April. And you got to remember, this disease only started in January. So that's pretty darn quick. EULAR was pretty close behind. But what they said about the key difference was the ACR doctors were focused very strongly on a drug shortage situation that was happening in our country at that time. And so they sort of geared theirs towards that. There was a recommendation in EULAR about vaccines. That was different, but we'll do a summary as we follow up with you more. But that was the main part. And the other one, I just wanted to give a shout out. And I apologize, I don't have her name written down here, but she did an amazing job on explaining research right now. She called it "All That Glitters Is Not Gold." And so fitting. There's so much information being shared right now about COVID and what works and what doesn't work. Bottom line is, we don't know. It's too early. A lot of things being published are not peer reviewed. And she gave an example of hydroxychloroquine, and how we all thought that, not everybody, but it was thought that that was this miracle drug, and it's not.
And one thing I will point out, Tiff, too, is that with that session, the EULAR doctor even just said, in his summary was, we're flying blindly.
Yes.
And they're just covering so many different things as fast as they can. They said the progress and how fast things are moving is just paramount.
And I'm going to, before I turn this over to Deb to talk a little bit about the PARA, I do want to mention, because it's the perfect time to throw it in there, we have a talk show, AiArthritis Voices 360. Just yesterday, which would have been June 10th, we aired a very short episode on the importance of having your voice counted in research having to do with COVID-19. And this is why. There's not enough information. We don't know who's positive, who's negative, who's false negative. We just don't know. So if you're a rheumatic patient and you think you've had COVID, regardless of testing, we need to hear your voice for these reasons. That rheumatologists and the researchers cannot connect the dots unless they hear our voices. So we'll also provide you with that link at the end, so you can find that. Deb, why don't you tell us a little bit about PARA's recommendations?
Absolutely. And Dieter actually was the host, and there were 4 different speakers during that session. And Dieter led the discussion, and 2 of the speakers were, some of our friends. So shout out to Susie and shout out to Elsa. Elsa talked about the PARA organization's best practices on COVID-19, and Susie talked about where do I find reliable COVID-19 information. And I'll just name some of the links as far as what she talked about. She mentioned WHO, the World Health Organization. She mentioned EULAR, the European Patients Forum, European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, the Health National, oh my goodness, National Health System.
I did it too. I know. I thought I had my coffee, we're fresh brained, and it didn't matter.
Nope, never does. With the tongue in the mouth going, yeah. ISPOR, which is the Professional Society of Health Economics and Outcome Research, and also UPATI. So those are the resources she mentioned, and if you go, you'll find out more information about those particular ones. And then we wanted to do our shout outs to our friends.
I also wanted to add what I particularly loved about that one as well. The
Thank you.
Gosh,
John Isaac.
Thank you. I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to mess up the name. So John Isaac, gave an amazing overview of COVID-19, and when I was listening to it, if any of you have followed, I mentioned our talk show. I have talked very openly about my frustrations with the whole COVID, and really believing that if I didn't have that virus, I had one heck of a virus that went straight to my heart. And I've never had heart issues. I've never even had inflammatory markers as a patient. So that was why my journey has been so difficult. But this sucker attacked my heart, and so whatever this virus was. And so I was really excited to see that they went into the depth that it's lungs, it's heart, it's eyes, it's brain. And that to me was very important, because it's so early and we need to move away from the idea that it's just a lung disease.
Absolutely.
Because
it's got so many other connections.
Especially with our diseases.
Right. And skin connections as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And so again, I'm gonna go back to it. If you think you really need to have your experience and your perspective on this heard, because if there are issues that happen with our heart or our eyes, we suffer from uveitis and inflammation in the eyes anyway. So those are things that are going to be really important to understand about COVID and rheumatology. So I wanted to throw that one out as well. Next one, treat to target.
Yes.
Deb, will you lead that one, because you took a lot of great. Deb is our photographer. And she takes a lot of screenshots.
I take the screenshots of all the different slides that they have.
So
So
her
yeah,
hands are very affected by rheumatoid arthritis. And so Patrice and I have been doing the notes. And that's how our team is working
we
here.
divide things, divide and conquer.
Yes. So you did a lot. You spent a lot of time on doing those slides. So I think it would be apropos that you start this one.
Absolutely. Some of the overarching principles as far as what treat to target is, I just wanted to kind of summarize in layman's terms what that actually meant. They talk about treatment and the strategy of medications that are used that are based on shared decision making between the parent patient, because sometimes these kids are 6 months old and the kids can't express. So the clinician would actually count on the parent to speak for the patient. And so they use the parent patient and the pediatric rheumatology healthcare team. So it's the communication and shared decision making. So it's not just the doctor making the decision, it's actually shared, and that's huge. The other thing is the goal of treating these patients for JIA are to control the signs and symptoms, prevent any kind of joint damage. I mean, that's the greater goal, is to prevent the damage. Decrease any type of drug toxicity, which means too much of a given drug, and optimize, make the best chance for growth and development, their quality of life, and social participation, so that they're actually being able to be physically active. They also talk about trying to get rid of inflammation, and that's actually the ultimate goal, and also getting rid of, or trying to have the least amount of disease activity, which means, joint inflammation and pain in general. So these are huge, huge parts of what treat to target is and what the principles are.
And I know she's going to be like, "Oh, you put me on the spot because we didn't talk about this in the beginning." But sorry, I'm looking at the title. It says "Treat to Target Children and Adults." So you mentioned juvenile arthritis. Was it similar? How was the adults tied into this?
Yeah, I actually did do that as well. I actually
Sorry.
it actually talked about, so this is like what the slide
Oh,
was.
look at
I
that.
printed
Okay.
it out. It was the comparison of pediatric and adult definitions of remission. And it talks about, they base a lot of this on joint count. So when you guys go in and the doctor is like feeling every one of your joints, for JIA, the goal for remission is zero joint counts. So they want to have 0 of the active joint counts, no systemic symptoms, so no other symptoms throughout your body, no active uveitis, which is the inflammation of the eyes, a normal CRP, which are your lab results, and your ESR, and your morning stiffness is less than 15 minutes. Those are the criteria for JIA. Now, for adults, they use the SDAI, which is a scale that they use, and they want to have your CRP less than 1 milligram per deciliter, and the tender joint and swollen joints, they want to have less than 1. So 1 or less, greater than or equal to. It's really, it's definitely, the kids, they're being like, they want 0 of all that stuff.
Yeah.
And for adult rheumatoid arthritis, it's got little variance, but like 1 joint is acceptable and they'll consider you being in remission.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. We're definitely going to have to revisit that as we
Absolutely,
invite
yeah.
other patients. We have an extended volunteer team also that we are inviting you all, since it's open until September 1st. We're going to be revisiting all of these sessions and opening conversations with our patient public around the world I'm very interested in that one, especially because most adults, I can't imagine getting down to one joint.
I've never been, actually,
especially if you have permanent damage. So anyway, I have a lot of questions about that. We'll have to look back and
yeah.
but
And
that's
actually,
something
for
I'm
me,
interested in.
diagnosed so early,
Right.
I have never been in remission. I've
I
never.
just can't imagine only having
I
one
didn't get
one
early.
spot.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, biologics weren't available until, well into my disease activity. So I don't think I'm ever going to get there. And I'm on
Yeah.
a lot of medication.
So I think that's definitely something that we should add to our list, where we'll circle back with all of you and have a robust conversation, because I think I don't think there's a one size fits all for remission. I just don't.
I 100% agree. And actually, we'd love to hear from you guys and find out what you guys think about that as well.
Absolutely.
And where you fit into that diagram.
Yeah, that's going to be that. I think that's going to be one of our key focuses, is takeaways from the ones that we're reviewing, where we get the rest of the community involved.
Yeah.
So other than that, we had two more that we're going to quickly review here for you. One of them, which I thought it goes in really well with what Deb just talked about, the treat to target. But it's called reducing drugs when and how. And I know all three of us saw that.
We're
we
No
were reviewing.
one ever talked about that. Taking it away.
And we all and I think Deb and I were a little bit more surprised to see it, because we've gone to conferences for so many years and it's never been a conversation when to stop using drugs.
Mm.
And I know Patrice used that. Wow. I mean, that seemed pretty fascinating. Jumped out to you right away. So we thought, and it did tie in very nicely with the treat to target session. Now, in saying that, some of the key, what they were studying is they reviewed different research studies. They did focus on rheumatoid arthritis, but in the question answer at the end, they were trying to compare it to other diseases as well. And that's something, again, we as an organization will explore with you, because I think that's also very important. But the rheumatoid arthritis was the one that was followed for 10 years, and different studies. What was really interesting is the method of how they did this. So, and I can't say for sure because we don't have it right in front of us. But one of the things that we all picked up on was there were different sample groups. There were different groups that were being tested with different prescriptions, with different types of drugs. And one of them, a DMARD, disease modifying agent, such as methotrexate. They also included steroids or hydroxychloroquine. Also the addition of a biologic early in treatment. And so they were dividing those into different groups of patients to find out who would possibly be able to get off drugs earlier. Would it be the person who just was on steroids? Is it the person that was on methotrexate and steroids? Was it the person who was on methotrexate and a biologic? I think those are the categories. I think.
Yeah, I'm going back and I'm looking for the document, so I'll interrupt you if I do find it.
Okay. So the bottom line was they first had to do their due diligence and asking patients, okay, so it's time. You want to get off your drug? And we all kind of went, I'm not surprised with what they found out. Fear was the driver. Fear of flaring, fear of what happens. Will my biologic not work again if I go off of it? There was all of those questions that, again, not surprising. And then there's doctors' concerns, and the doctors are really wanting the going off of the drugs for a variety of reasons. They can have long-term effects on our body, side effects. That's something that patients worry about as well. But also the general healthcare system, the cost to the healthcare globally, because these are very pricey prescriptions. And so the real driver was if you're looking at the cost anyway, because the other two do not cost all that much. But if you're looking at cost in particular, is getting people off of the biologics. What ended up happening was after 10 years, they would decide, and we'll have more details on this, but the summary is they did find that at least more than 50% were able to try to go off of drugs, and they, after they followed him, I think it was 12 months, if I'm correct. And sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm doing it now. I'm not stuttering. So I'm trying to read my notes here. So the bottom line was that their drug-free remission was achieved in about a third. There it is, about a third, and of the rheumatoid arthritis patients. There were also some that did flare, and they did have to go back on a treatment, but most of those, and I believe that's where the 60% came in, most of those were able to get their disease back under control by getting back on treatments within a 3 to 6 month period. And so that showed that it is possible to get off. But, you know, there's still there's still a lot of people that did need to still be on treatment. But the overall finding was that those that did the best, and some that really were able to achieve drug-free remission, were those who were treated early with the dual combination of the methotrexate and the biologic. Those were the ones that fared the best. So it really ties into the treat to target and how that is so dire and so important. And if we have the treat to target early on, we have the right diagnosis, the right access to treatments, then it definitely proves that there's possibility to be off of
I found one
drugs.
of this, again, it's going to show up all colorful, but this is the study, which was about the methotrexate and everything like that. And the monotherapy versus retention and stuff like that, and how it tapering and stopped. Oh,
and the other thing that they found were people were those who did the best were not smokers. And so in addition to treated with biologics early, they were not smokers. They had antibodies they were negative for certain antibodies, and that is important to us as it comes to precision medicine. So blood markers, and there was a certain blood marker that wasn't showing up, it was negative. So that's important as well, and it shows you why precision medicine is so important to understand how patients could possibly not only react to drugs, but get off of them eventually one day. So those are all, that was all great to know. And again, we will break out into more discussions with those interested. And then last but certainly not least, Ms. Patrice, you are going to tell us about the exercise.
Yes, so this was about implementing high intensity exercise while living with RMDs. And they didn't specify what high intensity is. I walk 4 to 5 miles a day. I don't think that's high intensity. But, you know, their bottom line is that exercise is good, providing you can do it. You know, it's for your physical and mental well-being. They also had some recommendations for how much to do exercise, how many certain minutes for aerobic, muscle strength training, how many days, as well as balance and flexibility exercises. So like I said, I walk 4 to 5 miles a day, and I do lift weights minimum 3 times a week.
Not a big barbell or anything.
Well, they're like 5 pounds, big deal, you know.
Okay. You're not down on a rack and like doing you know,
to keep that, because I walk, my lower body is more in tone than my upper body. So yes, that's why the weights come in for me. But I didn't realize that we should also be doing balance and flexibility exercises. However, they didn't specify what those are. And then of course, you know, if you do exercise, there's some red flags you should watch out for. You know, if you are in a flare or your joints are swollen, you know, these are things to watch out for.
Yeah, what really caught my eye about this one was it was called high intensity exercise for people with RMDs, and I went,
that makes
high intensity exercise. Yeah. Now there are people who can. And we know, I'm friends with people who are diagnosed with these diseases, and they have been able and fortunate to still work out pretty hard and probably do some high intensity, but it's not the norm.
Right.
And so that's what it was really interesting to me about this one. So I'm going to go back in. I admit I did not get to see that one yet. So I'm going to go in too. I'm really interested, but I think that's going to be extremely interesting for our population to dive in more and talk about it. Deb, was there anything else you wanted to, I know you went to this one.
Yeah, I did this one as well. And I think, one thing that they did point out is what is high intensity for one person, what I'm guessing is like somebody who's doing something on a regular basis at a certain caliber and isn't high intensity for them and being able-bodied, that would be high intensity for somebody with our diseases.
Okay.
So, just weighing that a little bit. And, some of the conclusions they talked about is just, you need to have somebody who is definitely degreed and actually is a reputable person that is giving advice to us, because they will have researched rheumatoid type diseases, rheumatoid patients, that they're be able to give better advice.
Kind of like
than just a trainer or somebody. I don't want, I'm not even sure what the title of somebody would be. They don't have any initials after their name or anything like that. You want to have somebody with initials after their name that actually has some deep down guidance.
Okay, well, we'll have to definitely look into that one more, because I do think in a summary here, what we want to revisit back with our population is definitely the virtual research center, which we took from the opening, and then continuing our efforts to try to bridge ACR and EULAR to bring the patient voice more prominent, like it is at EULAR, into the ACR. And that's just kind of a continuation. But
hey, Dieter, we're going to be reaching
we're
out
coming for you, Dieter.
Yes.
And then the COVID, which we're going to continue. There's a lot on COVID this time. So just starting with that scientific in the parade, but we really want to encourage of that as well, is if you think that you had COVID, if you just suspect it, you don't know, even if you do know, if you tested positive, we need to hear all of the story, all of your experiences, because it's just too new, and we need to understand that so that they can continue to develop this type of guidance. So without your words, without your voice, we can't do the guidance and we can't do the research. So that's kind of the takeaway there. And then when we have combining the treat to target and the reducing drugs, that's really a big theme that we've never seen before at these conferences. So being able to think about all this work for the last decade that doctors have been doing to try to intervene early and really, really target what's going to work best. Hey, we're finding out that it could actually get some people off of taking the medications. And I didn't even think that was part of our conversation, going to be part of the conversation at this juncture in time, but I'm glad that it is. And then, of course, the exercise. And that's a huge hot topic for our community, and something I believe people will be very interested in talking more about. So that's our first wrap up. There are 29 sessions that we picked that we felt were relevant for our mission as an organization, that we can then either speak to you all about more and get your voices involved, or they're relevant to an existing project that we're doing within our organization. But when we say inviting you, what we're talking about is, as we mentioned earlier, EULAR is an opening registration. Even now, even though the technical conference was last week, it is open, Deb, for how long?
In 3 months, September 1st. We got 3 months to go and view these sessions.
Yes, and we are going to space it out because that is flare free. And so we didn't rush and try to see everything that we needed to see in 4 days. We have a list of all of the sessions. We are looking into the posters. There are researchers that have 5-minute presentations. There's so much to see, and we're really going to dive in. And we're inviting you to come along with us. It's the first time we've been able to do this. Why shouldn't we? If our mission is truly to help patients have an equal voice at the table, then you should have an equal voice at the table and come to our table, and we'll have fun. We'll eat German food. Patrice is a great cook.
No.
So is Deb. Sorry. So am I. Actually, I'm not. I'm pretty good too.
Yes, we're all good cooks.
But
I made pork schnitzel for our
Yes.
first debrief on Tuesday.
Yes, she did. So we are going to try to keep it as true to life as being at a conference with us, as you can see my backdrop here. And that means that we will provide information on how you can register for free at EULAR. You can, and we'll post these links too. All you need to do is go to congress.eular.org. You can register again for free. They are going to ask you for documentation if you're a patient. The way that you do this, we figured it out. You go to your patient portal or any doctor's, anything that says your disease, you need to turn it into a PDF file. They will not accept images. So if you just take a quick photo, PDF, upload it, you're in. That easy. Okay, so you can, so once you do that, you're in. We also want you to go with us. So you can look around and see what you have, but this is a scientific convention. So the videos that you see are going to be very scientific, and it might be beneficial to talk about those with other patients so that we can explain what some of it means. Some of it's a little hard to navigate, and we're more than happy to do that. And we are going to have post discussions similar to what we did today with you. We're going to have research reviews, and we're going to try to make it fun, and maybe we can all have German food while we're doing it. And
we're going to invite some of our friends to attend with us.
We are.
Yes.
Yes.
And join us in conversations.
And who are our friends, Deb?
Susie, we'd love to have Susie join us, and Elsa. And again, we're from all these different people that we have met over the years at all our different conferences about networking. And we have many of them from all over the world. And we'd love to bring them on board too and join on a conversation with us.
So to do that, to register with us, again, free for us too, is you can go to, it's a bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/then AiArthritis EULAR 20. And that's all one word. We will also post that link. That will just tell us that you're interested in hanging out with us and doing some research reviews and looking at the posters and just talking about the conference with us. You can also go by yourself, but if you want to join us and other patients from around the world, then that's where you'll go. And we'll also have a link on our website. Also, if you, that we mentioned that research, that if you are interested in COVID, you can go to our website at aiarthritis.org/podcast. It's one of the most recent ones that will be at the top, and it says something about your voices count. That is the name of the episode. If you click on there, you're going to see all of the links to the research opportunities that we have. So there is our first update that we have. We will do these for you every week until we get through reviewing those initial 29, and we're going to invite you back for the continued dialogue. So that's it, right?
Love to have you join us. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Deb. Thank you, Patrice.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
We will see you all soon, hopefully.